Story 1. Once upon a time, I decided to rent out my apartment as an Airbnb. For the most part, I never had any major issues, so I never scrutinized the bookings too much before accepting them. However, if I ever decide to host on AIRBNB again, that would be something I'd change about the way I do things. Little did I know that a horrifying experience awaited me, one that would make me swear off hosting forever. It all started when a man named Kyle booked a week-long stay. He didn't mention anything about traveling. He simply said he badly needed a place to stay, which struck me as a little unusual. Nevertheless, I didn't think much of it. When I met him for check-in, I noticed he didn't have much stuff, just a duffel bag, a backpack, and a beat-up bicycle. His disheveled appearance and skittish demeanor made me suspect he might be homeless, raising questions about how he could afford the fee. Despite his rough appearance, Kyle was surprisingly gracious and appreciative. I treated him like any other guest, giving him the usual tour before leaving him to his own devices. As the days passed, however, I gradually realized that Kyle was going to be a problematic guest. I could hear constant music blasting from inside the apartment, and no matter how many times I texted him to turn it down, he never did. Whenever I knocked on his door to address the issue in person, I would see his shadow moving around inside, and I could hear him frantically rummaging through things, as if trying to hide something. He never answered the door, and although I considered using my own key to enter, I ultimately decided against it. The smell emanating from Kyle's apartment was the biggest red flag that I should have taken more seriously. Little did I know what awaited me within those walls. I should have evicted him much sooner, but after several days, I thought it would be best to let him stay until the end of his booking since it wasn't too far away. When his week-long stay finally came to an end, I was relieved that I wouldn't have to interact with him again. However, I was anxious about entering the apartment to see what kind of mess he had made. Bracing myself, I stepped inside, only to be greeted by utter chaos. The entire place was trashed, furniture moved around haphazardly, and junk strewn all over. The kitchen surfaces were covered in food remnants, and one of the pots was ruined, caked in a mysterious white substance I couldn't identify. The stench permeated the entire apartment, making me question how bad the garage, which I had been dreading to investigate, would be. Strangely, when I reached the bathroom door, it was locked. Annoyed, I left briefly to grab a bobby pin from my own house, intending to unlock it. However, upon my return, the bathroom door was mysteriously open. A chill ran down my spine, and I became increasingly on edge. Just then, I heard the sound of breaking glass coming from the kitchen. Silently, I crept through the hallway, cautiously approaching the kitchen. Peeking around the corner, my heart sank as I laid eyes on Kyle. He stood there with a broken bottle in one hand and a metal baseball bat in the other. His eyes reflected madness, and seeing me triggered an explosive outburst. "Who are you? Get out of my house. Don't mess with me, I swear to God, I'll kill you," he screamed, his voice filled with rage. Backtracking toward the exit, I tried to avoid any sudden movements while desperately attempting to reason with him. "Kyle, it's me, the host. I let you stay here, remember. I'm not lying to you, I swear. Let's just talk about this. Can you put all that down?" Suddenly, without warning, he charged at me. In a panic, I turned and ran out the door, only to feel a glass bottle smashing into my back, shattering and leaving me with deep cuts. I kept running until I reached the safety of my own home, locking the door behind me. Trembling and bleeding, I called the police. Unfortunately, I missed most of the standoff between Kyle and the officers, but I did catch a glimpse of them taking him away, double bound in handcuffs, screaming bloody murder. It later came to light that Kyle had been smoking crack throughout his entire stay, and his drug-induced state had caused him to forget that he was just a guest who was supposed to leave after a week. After that terrifying ordeal, a bitter taste lingered in my mouth whenever I considered hosting strangers on my property. I promptly cancelled all my bookings and deleted my AIRBNB account. The thought of trying my luck again in the world of short-term rentals no longer appealed to me. The memory of Kyle's deranged stay would forever haunt me, serving as a reminder of the dangers that lurk behind seemingly harmless encounters with strangers. Story 2. My husband and I have become avid travelers, and we've developed a preference for staying in AIRBNB accommodations rather than hotels. The homely atmosphere, unique settings, and personal interactions with hosts used to be the highlights of our experiences. However, our most recent stay in an AIRBNB turned out to be a nightmarish encounter that has made us swear off this type of lodging. This unsettling incident occurred in a specific AIRBNB that we had previously stayed in twice and quite enjoyed. The decor was warm and suited our romantic escapades. When we decided to visit our old friends in San Francisco, we booked this particular AIRBNB, which was a half of a duplex located in a lovely community outside the Bay Area. While we spent most of our time with our friends, having a place of our own to retreat to felt like a cozy respite from the usual stale hotel rooms. We had also developed a friendly rapport with the host, a 35-year-old single man who lived alone with his cats. He always seemed enthusiastic about hosting us and would invite us to his side of the house for breakfast every morning. Surprisingly, He was a talented cook, so we often accepted his invitations despite the occasional odd conversations. During these breakfasts, the host would ask us a range of questions, some of which crossed the line of personal boundaries. These intrusive questions made my husband uncomfortable, and he would sternly shut down the host's inappropriate inquiries. These uncomfortable moments would be followed by awkward silence, which occurred at least once during each breakfast. However, we endured these uncomfortable encounters because the free food was worth the occasional discomfort. Whenever things got tense, I tried to lighten the mood with a joke or lighthearted remark. Once, when the host pressed us about our fertility and intimate life, I jokingly declared that we had all the bases covered to our satisfaction. I hoped it would be a funny way to end the subject, but it backfired. The host burst into hysterical laughter, struggling to speak. He managed to say something that sounded like, "Oh, I know you do." It was a suggestion that he had overheard us being intimate through the walls. My husband, angered by the invasion of privacy, abruptly stood up and confronted the host, demanding an explanation. The host's laughter ceased immediately, and he stumbled for words before finally admitting that he had indeed heard us. Accepting this explanation begrudgingly, we continued with our stay. This incident took place during our second visit. When we planned our third trip to visit our friends, my husband raised concerns about the host's strange behavior and suggested finding alternative accommodations. Unfortunately, after searching for other options, we couldn't find anything of similar quality, affordability, and location. We reluctantly decided to stay at the same Airbnb again, within minutes of making the reservation. The host messaged us through the AIRBNB app, expressing an excessive amount of excitement and declaring his love for us. We rolled our eyes at his behavior but still found it somewhat amusing at the time. Upon arrival, the host tried to cater to our every need, but due to our late arrival caused by a delayed flight, we were exhausted and asked for privacy. The host seemed momentarily saddened by our request, but as he walked away, a telltale smile crept onto his face. I noticed it, but my husband did not. Before going to bed, we realized it had been a few days since we were intimate, and the excitement of being back in that room sparked our desires. We were about to give in to our desires when we noticed that something was different in the room. It felt off, as if things had been rearranged since our last stay. We briefly discussed it, but dismissed it as a minor detail. The passion between us overshadowed any concerns, and we began to engage in an intimate moment. However, our passion was abruptly interrupted when, in the midst of our activities, we accidentally knocked over a lamp on the bedside table. The lamp shattered upon impact, causing us to pause and attend to the mess we had created. As we picked up the broken ceramic pieces, my husband discovered something peculiar, a small object that had appeared to be a button just moments ago. To our horror, we realized it was a spy camera. A wave of nausea washed over me as the gravity of the situation sank in. Yet, what I witnessed next was even more unsettling. My husband's face turned crimson with an intense rage I had never seen before. He hastily got dressed and stormed out of the room, determined to confront the host. I stayed behind, my heart pounding, listening intently to what transpired next. My husband burst into the host's side of the house, breaking down the bedroom door in his fury. I strained to hear their conversation, which seemed to involve heated interrogations and tearful admissions. Though I couldn't catch every word, my husband later recounted that the host, through a flood of crocodile tears, confessed to spying on us in the bedroom throughout our entire stay. Furthermore, he revealed that he had set up additional cameras in anticipation of our return. In a fit of anger, my husband demanded that the host delete all the footage he had collected. However, it was too late. We discovered that this perverted individual had already posted our private moments on various pornographic websites. The violation of our privacy was beyond comprehension, and we had no way of knowing how many people had seen these intimate moments. The incident had shattered our sense of security and trust, and its consequences extended far beyond our ruined vacation. We were left with the daunting task of pressing charges against the host, a process that we had just begun. Despite the desire for revenge, we chose to handle the situation responsibly and keep our identities anonymous. The emotional and psychological scars left by this horrifying experience were deep. The mere thought of the footage circulating online filled us with shame and anger. Although we hoped to erase every trace of the footage, the reality was that once it had been downloaded, its complete eradication became nearly impossible. Our lives had been irreversibly altered by this traumatic event. We were left grappling with feelings of violation, anger, and helplessness. As we pursued legal action, we were determined to ensure that this host faced the consequences of his actions. Our hope was that he would be held accountable for the immense damage he had caused, and that no one else would fall victim to his sickening acts of voyeurism. In the face of this ordeal, we vowed to rebuild our lives and find solace in each other's support. The road to recovery would be long and challenging, but we were determined to overcome the trauma and reclaim our sense of security. With the support of our loved ones, legal authorities, and therapy, we embarked on a journey towards healing and justice. Our story serves as a cautionary tale, a reminder of the potential dangers lurking behind seemingly innocent encounters. We hope that by sharing our experience, others will be more vigilant and cautious when it comes to their own privacy and safety. And to the host who violated our trust and exposed our most intimate moments, justice will be served and the pain you cause will not go unnoticed. Story 3. There is a serious flaw in the AIRBNB system, especially when it comes to first-time hosts. It's difficult to know what someone might do since they haven't been tested or reviewed by previous guests. While most hosts are trustworthy, there's always that small percentage that can cause unimaginable harm. Unfortunately, I had to learn this lesson the hard way, and it has left me deeply traumatized. It all started when I decided to use AIRBNB for the first time. I was going back to my hometown, but none of my friends had space for me to stay, and my relationship with my family wasn't ideal. Since there weren't many good hotels in this small town, AIRBNB seemed like the only viable option. I didn't pay much attention to the lack of ratings for the place I chose or the fact that the host had only recently joined the platform. It didn't seem important at the time. The host appeared to be an average-looking middle-aged man, a balding family man who seemed to have enough money to own 2 properties. Upon arrival, I realized that the place was smaller than it had appeared in the photos, just 2 bedrooms and 1 bathroom. The larger bedroom was designated for my stay, located at the back of the house with a window facing the backyard. The host engaged in friendly conversation before leaving, and everything seemed unassuming even in hindsight. On the first night, I went out with my friends, returning late and heavily intoxicated. I crashed on the bed immediately, only to wake up the next afternoon feeling hungover and disoriented. As I tried to leave the bedroom to use the bathroom, I discovered that the door was locked. Turning the lock the other way made no difference, it remained stubbornly shut. A sinking feeling overwhelmed me, but I couldn't believe that the door was locked from the other side. How is that even possible? I walked over to the nightstand to grab my phone, but it was nowhere to be found. I distinctly remembered leaving it there to charge, but it had vanished. Panic and confusion started to take hold. Maybe I had left my phone in my luggage, I thought, but when I checked the closet, my bags were gone. The room seemed devoid of anything I had brought with me. I began pacing, searching frantically through the sheets, shelves, and decorations. It became painfully clear that my belongings were nowhere to be found. Feeling claustrophobic and at a loss for what to do, I sat on the bed, trying to calm my nerves. Dehydrated and with a pounding headache, I decided to open the window for some fresh air. If all else failed, I contemplated climbing through it. However, to my horror, the window that had overlooked the yard was now boarded up. My heart sank and a wave of nausea hit me. This couldn't be happening. Everything reached a boiling point, and I snapped, pounding on the door and screaming for the host to let me out. To my surprise, the door swung open, but it was swiftly followed by a blow to my face that knocked me back. The host stood before me, brandishing a shotgun. His eyes and demeanor were completely different, exuding a twisted satisfaction akin to that of a true serial killer. Every word he spoke is etched into my memory. "So, you're finally up. You were so out of it last night, making it easy for me to set up your room for what I planned to do with you," he said with a sick smile. I shouted back, demanding to be released, but he leveled a shotgun at my face, silencing me. He warned me not to make things worse for myself, and as I glanced beyond him, contemplating escape, he knew my thoughts. "I wouldn't try that if I were you," he said menacingly. "The whole house is locked up, and you and I are going to spend a lot of time here together." A sickening laughter escaped his lips as he relished in the power he held over me. "I don't care about getting away with it. I've wanted to do something like this for as long as I can remember," he taunted, his eyes gleaming with sadistic pleasure. "I'm going to break you. You'll suffer, and you'll beg me to let you go. First, you'll be angry and try to fight back. Then you'll plead, saying you'll do anything I want. But when that doesn't work, when your soul is completely shattered from the torment I have planned for you, you'll beg for the sweet release of death. And only then will I finally kill you." His words struck me like a ton of bricks, causing dizziness to engulf my senses. I struggled to comprehend the nightmare that had become my reality. With a twisted grin, he continued, reveling in his sadistic fantasies. "After that, who knows how long I'll revel in the sight of your shredded corpse before I take myself out as well. I have no intention of living out my days in prison." I fell into a shocked silence, unable to process the horrors that awaited me. The room spun as I desperately tried to find a way out of this living nightmare. In a feeble attempt to grasp at any sliver of hope, I asked him about his family, hoping there might be someone who could intervene. However, his face contorted with anger at the mention of family, indicating that they were no longer in the picture. "I don't have anything left to live for," he spat, his voice dripping with venom. "But you, my dear, you still have so much to lose. That's what will make this whole process so enjoyable for me, watching you give up on it all." I mustered the courage to mention that my friends would come looking for me. Perhaps they would save me from this living nightmare. But his response shattered any flicker of hope within me. "Oh, yes, your friends," he sneered. "When they text you, thinking they'll be your saviors, that's when you'll realize you're truly doomed. Isn't that a beautiful twist of fate? Silence hung heavy in the air as I struggled to come to terms with the inescapable reality I found myself in. Before I could fully process my despair, he caught me off guard, striking me with the butt of his gun. Dazed and disoriented, I collapsed to the floor, feeling the weight of his blows and kicks raining upon me. Exhausted, he finally left the room, locking me inside once again. I spent what felt like an eternity trapped within those four walls, not knowing if anyone would ever come to my rescue. Every few hours, he would return, continuing his sadistic torment. I endured relentless beatings, strangulation, cuts, and unspeakable acts of violence. My feet and hands were broken, rendering me immobile and defenseless. Both internally and externally, I bled profusely. My mind shattered under the weight of the unimaginable cruelty inflicted upon me. At times, I found myself wishing for the release of death to end my suffering. However, unbeknownst to me, I had shared my whereabouts with my friends before my disappearance. When they realized I hadn't been seen in days, they embarked on a desperate search for me. Yet, the sadistic monster made sure to extract every last second of torture before his inevitable demise. As the police stormed his house, they were met with a haunting sight: the lifeless body of my tormentor lying on the floor, a pool of blood surrounding him. In a cruel twist, he had chosen to end his own life rather than face the consequences of his monstrous actions. And there, amidst the horror, they found me, broken, battered, and on the brink of death. The relief and anguish mingled within me as the paramedics rushed to my side, their urgent voices fading into a blur. I was whisked away to the hospital, where a team of doctors fought to save my shattered body and fragmented soul. Days turned into weeks as I hovered between life and death, clinging to a flickering ember of hope. Through countless surgeries, therapies, and the unwavering support of loved ones, I began the arduous journey of physical and emotional healing. It was a process marked by unimaginable pain, both in body and mind. Nightmares haunted my sleep, and flashbacks of the horrors I endured invaded my waking hours. But I refused to let the darkness consume me entirely. With each step forward, I discovered a newfound resilience, a strength that blossomed from the depths of my despair. Gradually, I started to rebuild my life, piece by shattered piece. The scars remained, both visible and hidden, but I refused to let them define me. As the news of my ordeal spread, it sent shockwaves through the community. People began to question the safety of the AIRBNB system and demanded stricter regulations to protect the vulnerable. My story became a catalyst for change, shining a spotlight on the flaws in a system that had failed me. I found solace in advocacy work, dedicating myself to raising awareness about the importance of safety measures and thorough background checks for hosts. I joined forces with other survivors, sharing our stories, amplifying our voices, and fighting for justice. Together, we lobbied for legislative changes to ensure the protection of future guests, preventing them from falling into the clutches of predators. Through it all, the support of my friends and family remained unwavering. Their love and care acted as a balm to my wounded spirit. Together, we forged a path towards healing and restoration, vowing to turn the tragedy I endured into a catalyst for positive change. Though the scars on my body may never fade entirely, they serve as a reminder of the strength I discovered within myself. I refuse to be defined by the horrors of my past. Instead, I choose to channel my resilience and newfound purpose to create a safer world, a world where no one else will suffer the same fate. And as I continue my journey of healing, I hold on to the hope that one day, my experience will serve as a beacon of light for others who have endured similar darkness. Together, we will rise above the shadows, reclaim our lives, and rewrite our stories with strength, courage, and unwavering resilience.